I'm Rudy Giuliani, and welcome to Rudy's Common Sense. The episode today, I am actually recording on Pearl Harbor Day. So I would like to take one moment to reflect on that attack, terrible, shocking event that brought us into an endless war, won by the greatest generation, won by Americans of tremendous courage, and all of America participated in that, from the people who fought it overseas to the people who supported them at home, to the women who took on jobs that they never thought they'd ever have to do, to an entire nation not prepared for war, not with an army that was anywhere near what it should be, or a navy that was substantially damaged at Pearl Harbor, became the greatest military in the world by the middle of that war and the end of it, and gave so many lives to free other people, something no other nation has ever done. So let's remember them, and let's hope and pray that we have inside ourselves that same resolve, that same patriotism, that same love of America. I know we did on September 11. I recognized it when I saw those firefighters putting up the flag like the Marines did at Iwo Jima. I believe it's still there. It's muted somewhat by the ineffective, anti-American attitude of this administration, like a hatred of this country, and lack of leadership, almost impossible to describe, which is what we're going to talk about right now. It just happens that three challenges are being presented, almost seems to me as a test of a president that the world has to view as impaired. Certainly, the shrewd, evil leaders of Russia, China, and the regime of terror in Iran view him as impaired. And so they're presenting him with challenges that they never presented to President Trump. Has to tell you something, right? And he invited it by his own weak action. So let's begin with the first. We're going to cover the Russian designs on Ukraine, China's similar long-term interest in capturing and uniting Taiwan as an integral part of China, and then Iran's new position on the former nuclear agreement, where it seems as if they don't want one anymore. And we'll figure out why and just exactly how we got ourselves into that position. So let's start with the maybe the most current one, which is the amassing of troops on the border of the Ukraine. Let's take it back just a little bit. You remember that back in 2014, Ukraine had a revolution, and the cause of it was not terribly dissimilar to what is going on right now. The leader then of the Ukraine, the president of the Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, was a close ally and friend of Vladimir Putin. And he had flirted with the idea, because it was so popular in Ukraine, of joining NATO and the EU. But then with tremendous pressure from Putin, he changed position and turned down any economic association with the EU. And that sparked a revolution in the streets. And they overthrew Yanukovych. Yanukovych had to flee. His administration had to flee. All the crooks with him had to flee. And then in retaliation for the overthrowing of their puppet, Putin probably used it as an excuse to invade Donbass and Crimea. He officially annexed Crimea, and unofficially he still occupies Donbass, and hostilities continue there. And so let's look at the Soviet big picture so we can fit this in. Putin's vision is really not a big secret, is it? I mean, it's been written everywhere. He expresses it one way or another in many of the things that he says. His vision is to recapture, maybe in a slightly different form, the Soviet empire. He sees himself as maybe even like a czar. Remember, the Russian government, the Russian nation, however you want to describe it, has had very, very little experience with true democracy. A little bit back at the turn of the century, and a little bit between Gorbachev and Putin deciding he was going to take over completely. Now, what is he, president for life? I think he is, right? It's hard to know exactly the understanding of the institutions of democracy in Russia. But in any event, he, I think, is quite popular in Russia because he wants to reestablish the control that Russia had over their satellites. Possibly not as annexed exactly to Russia, maybe more in the nature of the way he controls Belarus. And he has those ambitions for, well, go look at the former satellites. He has those ambitions for Latvia, Lithuania, don't know if he has it. Don't know if that would extend to Finland. Was never really theirs. Belarus, of course, but he has that. Don't know if he still has designs on Poland. They seem to have come a long way as a very strong modern state. And that would require a massive war. And that would require a war with NATO because Poland is a part of NATO, and any attack on them would be an attack on us, and it would be similar with the I would think with the Baltics, right? So Ukraine's a good target because Ukraine is not protected by any association with NATO or Europe. Ukraine is probably the most desirable target, with the exception maybe of Poland, which is out of the question. Used to be considered the breadbasket of Europe. It's still a gateway for a great deal of the energy and the oil and the gas that's delivered to Europe that he uses as a lever. He's basically militarized that. And the whole idea of Ukraine wanting to be part of NATO and the EU has, from the very beginning, been something that Putin is determined to stop, because if they become part of NATO and the EU, then his dream of annexing them or taking them over in some way, like Belarus, is gone, right? Then they get into the category of, if you touch them, it triggers automatic defense by NATO, and I can't believe that even Biden would avoid that. He'd avoid everything else, but not that. I think he might be impeached if he did, by the way. That's a solemn treaty obligation of the United States, a real treaty, not the ridiculous thing they signed with Iran, which was never ratified as a treaty. That was just that was a Biden-Obama whim and delivery of hundreds of millions and billions in cash to a terrorist country. That was a disgusting agreement. So right now, as we sit here, Russia has annexed Crimea. Ukraine doesn't agree. Russia effectively controls Donbass but denies it. And now it's beginning to amass massive troops right on the border of Ukraine. We know this through satellite imagery, intelligence, and Russia is not really denying that. They are denying that they're there for the purpose of invasion. What their purpose would be other than that is spending the holidays on the border. I mean, it's hard to figure out what their purpose would be, but Russia lies constantly. It's no different than when they were the Soviets, I mean, or the Chinese, or they're totally amoral, immoral group of people. The leadership, not the people, the leadership of the country. So those troops are there for some tactical purpose. They could be there. They could be there to frighten America, frighten Ukraine, see if he can negotiate out of the penalties and the sanctions that they have, particularly the dust up with NATO, where some of their people were thrown out and they removed their office, and it could be there as a test, where he's helping his friend Z to see the resolve of the United States, to poke it. Or they could be there because he's seriously thinking that there's no better opportunity with a weakling in the White House to attack, or at least let's find out. Why not test him? I mean, China's doing it, as we will talk about a little bit later. Iran is doing it. We're not going to go into North Korea. We'll do it at a different time, but North Korea is doing it. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. So in 2014, we did nothing. And we're presenting to Putin every indication that we're not going to go too far in defending Ukraine. 2014, we didn't do anything. We wouldn't even give them arms, lethal weapons. Biden says he was in favor of it, but who the heck knows? I mean, he lies so much, one would never know. But basically, his administration wanted them to fight off the Russians with pea shooters. He wouldn't give them, Trump gave them arms eventually, and they were able to slow down the march through Donbass and reclaim a good deal of it. Russia always has looked very carefully at our military budget, as China does. He sees that Biden has effectively reduced it. It's a 2% increase with a 6% inflation, which is roughly a 3 or 4% decrease in the budget. Can't do much with that. Can't make up for the fact that China has passed us as the largest navy, and they now have a jet that can go further out to hit our aircraft carriers than we have in the Navy to get into mainland China and do some damage. We can get to the shore, but not to mainland China. And as I said, they've passed us as the largest Navy in the world, which is disgraceful. And nothing being done to fix that. In fact, there's a reduction, an effective reduction in our budget. Remember, they're a tiny country compared, they're a state. They're a state. They're not even economically as secure as any of our states. Our sanctions knock the hell out of them when we do it, effectively. And by the way, there's a big difference between the way Trump did sanctions and the way Biden did. I'm not even sure they do sanctions. They just say they do. All you have to do is look at Iran and see that when Trump came into office, Iran was doing great. He just enforced the Obama sanctions, and Iran crashed. And then he put more on, and they really crashed. Same thing with Russia. And then, I guess maybe in the most surprising thing of all, that would say to me, gosh, I got a sucker on the other end, we gave up any objections to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Now, right now, before that pipeline is effectuated, Russia supplies about 70% of the energy, well, about 90% of the energy to Eastern Europe and about 70% of the energy to Europe overall, particularly Germany, who really is a collaborator with Putin. Even on that, most of Europe opposed our agreeing to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, except for Germany, which secretly wanted it very, very badly because of Merkel's very insidious relationship with Putin, where she's undermining right now Poland as well. So thank goodness she's leaving office. But you look at that, if you're Putin and you say, I don't know if they use the word sucker in Russian, but there must be a word for sucker in Russian. You say, let me push this guy a little more. Gosh, this is for free. He gave me something that Trump was driving me nuts over for nothing. So then he looks at our position with others in the world. He sees us giving up the Bagram air base, which is 400 miles from China, 500 miles from Iran, and pretty darn close to Moscow. And he says, boy, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing, right? I wouldn't give that up. If Russia had an air base 500 miles from the US, you think they'd give it up? If China had one, they're trying to get one in Africa. They're trying to get a naval base in Africa, on the Atlantic side of Africa, so they can be a couple thousand miles from us. He sees North Korean provocative actions, nothing being done. And behind the scenes, he knows, because his intelligence is better than ours, we're lobbying against legislation to reimpose and to re-up the sanctions. The Biden administration is lobbying against the sanctions that Trump imposed. I mean, who was colluding with Russia? We know Trump wasn't. We know that Biden's kid got $3.5 million from Russia. Nobody connected to Trump got any money from Russia. We know that the Clintons made $100 million over agreeing to give them materials from which you can make weapons. So which party is compromised by Russia? And we have to assume that they certainly have the laptop I have, just a couple of rooms from here, and a lot more. And if they have a lot more than I have, not only do they have about 100 crimes committed by Joe Biden and his son and his brother and his relatives, but they got images of perversion that would shock any decent person. Well, then they meet today. I don't even have to know what they talked about. I do now somewhat. Even the lies aren't very good. I mean, he ends up with saying, I'll put sanctions on you. Well, let me tell you what should have been done by an American president in the tradition of not just even our great presidents. How about our good patriotic ones? He should have started off the conversation. Whenever I wanted to control a discussion, I started. And I also always liked sitting at my counsel table all by myself while the defense had 20 people on the other side. Maybe one assistant, maybe one. The jury look at that and say, hey, we know who the guy in command is. I just started off saying, Vladimir, not going to be peace shooters this time, pal. We're not going to give our friends in Ukraine peace shooters, but get them back to their families for Christmas. I want to help. I want to help you be more popular, getting those people back to your families. So here's what we're going to do. That those sanctions that you think we were lobbying to, well, we're going to, today I'm doubling them. Yeah, I'm doubling them. Whatever they were, we're doubling them. Just to start off. I know you can't remove troops yet, but this is to get your attention. Every day I want to see at least 10,000 troops out, maybe 20. Your schedule is 2 days, December 23rd, I want them all out. Now, every day there anybody there, I keep doubling the sanctions. Now, if you really upset me, and where I don't see real movement by the weekend, I'm getting together 100,000 troops with NATO and putting them on the Polish border. I may put some there anyway. And that's to make you know that I'm not screwing around with you. Those people are going to engage if you come over that border. And not only that, they're going to cut out the nonsense with Belarus, where you're sending all these people over the border because your monster, who you support, is upset because he has sanctions put on him. He shouldn't have sanctions put on him. He should be in jail for the rest of his life. So Nord Stream is gone. You got the choice, my friend. Nord Stream is gone. Sanctions go up every day. Don't want military action. I hate it. But I also am not let my country get pushed around or my allies get pushed around. Not while I'm president. Oh, and by the way, once again, we're going to reestablish the Keystone XL pipeline. We're going to begin fracking. And within a year, we're going to be energy independent again. And we're going to knock the hell out of your gas and oil prices like we used to. Knock the hell out of them. Okay? And we'll start. Within 10 years, we'll be supplying energy to Eastern Europe like Trump started. And I stupidly interrupted. So that's what an American president should do. Why don't you send it to Biden or to the idiots that seem to support Russia over America? That's what any American president would do, what I just did, whether he's Democrat or Republican. That's what a patriot would do. That's what a person would do who knows how to protect the lives of other people. It's a shame that we elected him. Could be the worst mistake we made in our history. And we got to live through it now. We got to get to 22 and 24 and put a check on them. But we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. I accomplished a lot in 2020, exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Thank you for coming back. And the second one we will deal with is the Chinese desire to capture and to take Taiwan back, which is a desire that now is there almost from the inception of the establishment of Taiwan in, I believe it was 1947, and was then called Formosa. And Taiwan has since become a democracy, a very, very substantial democracy, and one of the strongest economies in the world, and right now one of the most desirable economies because of their almost monopoly on developing microchips. And the need for those and the shortage of those is very, very severe. And the amount of trade that goes on now with Taiwan is probably the highest ever, certainly with the United States, but also with other countries. So Taiwan has become, in its own way, quite important to a good deal of the rest of the world, because computers are nothing without the chips. And they seem to have developed the best expertise and the fastest method of producing them. On the other hand, Taiwan fits into the overall overarching plan of Xi Jinping, who is preparing for the major party conference next year, toward the end of next year. And he is not making any secret of the fact that what he wants to accomplish is to become, I think the title he'll take is president for life, but what he really wants to be is the party leader for life. Because as we all know, his two most powerful successors, Mao and Deng, their real power emerged from being head of the party. And then whatever other title they had was, if not honorary, not quite as important, because the party runs China. China is run by the roughly 90 to 100 million members of the Communist Party, which is a very small percentage of the people in China, right? And they, unlike the image people might have of communists, these are also the wealthiest people in China. And at the upper range, maybe as many billionaires as in America or any place else, maybe more. They, as happened in Russia and Cuba and every place else that communism developed, the party members all become quite wealthy, and the upper ones become the wealthiest people in the country, like Putin is in China, or Castro was in Cuba, or go on and on, because it's an evil, not only philosophy, but as it works itself out as a form of government, it's a cruel, evil, authoritarian form of government that makes the leaders all powerful, and the all powerful immediately leads to massive, overwhelming greed. Almost no exception to that, by the way. I don't think there is any. So let's take a look at China, because Taiwan is not an issue in and of itself. We'll show you a map of China, and you'll see that Taiwan is just right off the shore of China, which leads to a lot of disputes between China, Taiwan, Japan over the islands there. Japan is a major supporter of Taiwan and sees Taiwan as a sort of a flashpoint for itself. In other words, if China were to move against Taiwan, it would say to Japan, "We're next." So Xi's overall worldview is he wants to be leader for life. He wants China to be, I think the date that he put out there, but I'm sure it's been accelerated, was 2040. By 2048, he wants to be the strongest economy in the world. He wants to surpass the United States. And he wants to be, in a more general way, the strongest country in the world, which means he wants to surpass the United States, not only economically, but militarily. And he's made some real progress in doing that. He has already surpassed the United States Navy. He has a larger Navy. And even though we have to theoretically patrol 2 oceans and he has to patrol only 1, his Navy is larger than ours, which gives you an idea that maybe that 1 ocean Navy is going to be a thing of the past for China. And they have designs really on building a building a naval base on the Atlantic coast of Africa, which would be a massive challenge to the United States if that were the case, because basically then they would be just across the pond, so to speak, from us. Makes one question, which we will do constantly during this discussion: why the hell did we give up the Bagram Air Base? We'll show you a picture of that too. That's 400 miles from China. That's 500 miles from Iran. And I will have to go check what it is from Russia. Who are the three challenges? They want to develop a military base or a naval base closer to us. And we already had one 400 miles from China. And our impaired president, or possibly compromised president, gave it up when we easily could have held on to that the way we hold on to military bases all over the world that would not have constituted any kind of occupation of Afghanistan any more than it's an occupation of Italy or Germany or Qatar. Maybe that thinking is too complex for a man who's always been mentally challenged intellectually throughout his life, and now is obviously suffers from mental deterioration, serious mental deterioration, and also is surrounded by what appear to be very pro-left-wing, pro-communist advisors. But there's no other explanation for giving up that base other than to benefit China. You don't give up a base 400 miles from the country that wants to overtake you in 2048 and has built a navy larger than yours. They are also developing their other forces. Recently, they revealed the fact that they circumnavigated the globe by air with a hypersonic missile, which flies much, much lower, becomes much more difficult to detect by our missile defenses and our form of the Iron Dome that Israel has. It also allows for attack from outer space, and they are ahead of us. We are yet to have developed a hypersonic missile. We're in the process of doing it, and so is Russia. But they wanted to make sure that they showed us they were out there first. They've developed longer range fighter aircraft so that from the mainland of China, they can reach our aircraft carriers and attack them with fighters. And our planes that are on the aircraft carriers do not have as large a range, so they can reach the coast of China. But unless they move in very, very close, they're going to have a hard time getting into the mainland of China for counterattacks. It's another area in which they're ahead of us. Now, we do have other planes that can be launched from air bases that could go deep into China, but we sacrificed one of them. Do you understand that? I don't. And since this administration functions as a non-responsive fascist regime, you'll never get little Miss Lionhood to tell you the answer to that. You think you can get an answer to why did you give up Bagram? If you can, you're better than the White House press corps. I mean, there's a whole group that really doesn't care if we make China more powerful. I don't know why. And then there are those who do want an answer. They're not going to get it. But there's no conceivable explanation for why we would give up a base 400 miles from China when they have already put us in a bit of a deficit by developing a fighter that can fly further than ours, reach our carriers, bomb them, and then we cannot, from those carriers, go as deep into China. And we have to compensate for that with jets and fighters and bombers leaving from land-based situations, of which Bagram had to be one of the closest to China. And of course, proximity is crucial. Remember the great debate over missiles 90 miles from the US and Cuba. Having that ocean separating us doesn't make us invulnerable as we thought it did until September 11th, but it does give us a measure of protection that other countries don't have, and we can get right up next to their borders and be able to attack them. What are we doing to deal with this? I mean, this agenda includes persecution of Christians. Uyghurs Uyghurs really a persecution to the point of genocide, as well as the Falun Gong to the point of suicide, or any group that isn't fully willing to put communism and the Communist Party ahead of God, ahead of family, basically children of property of the state. I mean, there was a whole long period of time, and I'm sure in parts of China it still goes on, when undesirable children were killed, particularly girl babies. Now I think they've gone back to a three-child limit. There used to be only one, so the second child had to be aborted or killed, and particularly if it was a girl. Then it went to 2, and I think it might have just been changed to 3. This is the kind of evil, perverted group of people we're dealing with here. And we also have their total double cross of Hong Kong. I mean, when they obtained Hong Kong, it was going to be semi-independent, at least with regard to being allowed to operate as a democracy, which, gave some hope of maybe Taiwan someday fitting in that way. I remember when I was in China 12 years ago, and I met with the head of the Communist Party in Beijing, when our view of China was a little more questioning whether China was going to go down one road or another. Were they going to practice the peaceful rise, or were they going to follow the hawks, who seem to have completely taken control? And certainly Xi has set out a agenda that is uncontradicted, aggressive hawk, if you will. But I remember talking to the head of the Communist Party in Beijing about Taiwan near the end of our conversation. And I said to him something about maybe the thing would be easier to resolve if you yourself in China started to move toward democracy, because even if you promise them democracy, as you did Hong Kong, as long as you're not, they're not going to trust it. Now, this is before they double-crossed Hong Kong, but which I fully expected them to do. And we're saying that Taiwan's not going to buy what you did with Hong Kong because they don't trust you to keep it. And the head of the party was very, very, very pleasant when I said that. And for some reason, it just struck me as strange he'd be smiling. So I leaned over to my translator, and I said, "There's something wrong here, isn't there?" And the translator said that his translator translated it incorrectly. Didn't bother to tell him my criticisms of China. So I said, I interrupted, and I said, I'd like my translator to tell you exactly what I said, I believe it wasn't conveyed properly. The minute he got the gist of what I was saying, the expression on his face completely changed. He had been extremely pleasant. It was over 1 hour talk. He had been extremely pleasant. We talked a lot about reducing crime and about the new crime in Beijing that had come in when they opened up the provinces and allowed people to travel. He blamed the crime on the people he blamed the crime on the outsiders, of course, often the case. I have no idea if that's true. Now, they never let me get to see enough of China to make an assessment of that. But when he got the gist of what I was saying about Taiwan and being more democratic, and he stood up and he said, "I want you to go back and tell your president," Bush was the president then, "that it's inevitable that it's going to be one China, not just in theory but in practice, and there's no escaping that, and he just better get used to it, and to stop these suggestions to the contrary." I said, "I will not deliver that message. I'm not here. I'm here as a private person. Do not count on the fact that I'll deliver that message." Their invasion of Taiwan is not will it happen, it's when will it happen. And with what Russia is doing on the one hand, and Iran, which we'll talk about a little later, is doing on the other, seems to me that they have each come to a joint conclusion that we have a very weak and we have a very impaired president, but around him he seems to have a very poor decision-making apparatus, because decisions do get made. And if he makes them, fine. If he doesn't, somebody else doesn't. Decisions are extremely weak and sometimes completely irrational, like giving up Bagram or leaving Afghanistan leaving the civilians unprotected, taking the troops out before the civilians so no one could protect them, or just giving Russia the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which basically gives Russia total control of Europe. Biden has basically created the atmosphere with China, as he has with Russia, that why not challenge him? He presented his budget some time ago, and his budget was one of the largest increases. This is before we get to the $1 trillion this and the $1 trillion that. One of the largest increases in the budget in years, if not the largest. Set up the largest debt ever. He increased agencies of government having to do with social services by 20 and 30, even 40%. Almost nothing was cut. The defense budget was increased by 2%. It stood out. Inflation is going to be 5 to 6%. It's roughly about a 4% decrease. Doesn't give room for doing the things that have to be done. I mean, we won the Cold War largely by the strength of our military budget and our spending the Soviet Union into oblivion. It looks like China wants to do that to us, and a weak Biden has given them pretty much the let's say impetus to possibly do that. Also, by his proposed raising of taxes, China's going to end up with a lower tax rate than the United States and be a more hospitable place for business, if it isn't already a more hospitable place given its larger market. In fact, how many of our major corporations have sold out to China because of the tremendous profits they can make there? Another unbelievably catastrophic, damaging thing he did is to dismantle the United States energy independence. We were an exporting nation. We were challenging and trying to create alternatives for Europe and other parts of the world, so they wouldn't have to rely on Russia and wouldn't have to rely on that alliance. I propose that he reestablish the military budget now, that he resubmit a military budget with very, very substantial increases overall, a complete modernization of our nuclear fleet, which would affect all of these challenges, but with specific attention on the Navy, so that we once again become the biggest Navy in the world, and legitimately a two-ocean Navy, that we rectify immediately their advantage in fighters, at least fighters that can take off from aircraft carriers, so that we can go as deep into China as they can roam out beyond China. So we don't have to rely just on land bases in order to attack them, but we can use our very, very effective aircraft carrier fleet, which is somewhat neutralized by this advantage that China has developed. Let's change the balance of power there, and let's change the balance of power so we have a larger Navy, and let's change the balance of power so immediately we develop our own hypersonic missile, and let's modernize our entire nuclear fleet, which has needed modernization for some time. So let's show them that we are willing to outspend them militarily and also show that to Putin and Iran and the rest of the world, that there isn't a limit on what we will spend to defend America, to defend freedom, and to make sure that a homicidal dictatorship doesn't become the most important country in the world telling us what to do. And then, of course, sanctions. We should keep the sanctions. We should keep the tariffs. The tariffs are actually helping greatly with Taiwan. And of course, we owe those tariffs to Trump and also to Biden not reversing them. But given his compromised position with China, one wonders when they're going to go. And then we should keep the pressure on them with regard to the Uyghurs' genocide and their attack on Christianity and their attack on the Falun Gong and what they're doing in Hong Kong. And of course, Wuhan closed down China and sent for a month and a half to 2 months Chinese people all over the world and spread it, which is an act of war and an attack on the rest of the world. China is singularly and solely responsible for the millions and millions of lives that were lost. But we're not holding them accountable for it. Holding them accountable for it would do a great deal to break up a lot of the commercial relationships and other relationships they're developing, including their desire to build a naval base in Africa. So those are the things we're not doing. And in not doing it, we are assisting China in becoming the principal country in the world within the next 20 years, which means the world will be guided by a homicidal, godless, American-hating dictatorship. Is that what you want for your children? Well, it doesn't seem like Biden has much enthusiasm for stopping it. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back with the final challenge. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Welcome back, and our final segment will concern the challenge of Iran, and really quite specifically, there are a lot of challenges posed by Iran, but the one that's really being put on the table right now is the reauthorization, or America re-entering the nuclear agreement that was forged by the Obama administration and then rejected by Trump, I believe it was in 2018. And that original agreement provided that, as I recall it, Iran would not become nuclear, or didn't have the option of being nuclear in terms of a nuclear weapon until 10 years from the date of that, which was either 2014 or 2015. And they had to keep a 1-year gap between the development of their nuclear components and their ability to launch a offensive nuclear weapon and use an offensive nuclear weapon. And in return for that, and in return for waiting 10 years to have the option of being a nuclear power, which of course Iran denies. Iran says they want the peaceful use of nuclear power, but the agreement would have given them the option of being free to do whatever they wanted after 10 years, so long as they maintained a 1-year gap between where they were in enriching uranium and other areas, 1-year gap between that and when they could actually become an offensive nuclear power in the club with Pakistan and India and China and maybe Israel, maybe not Israel. So in return for that, they got everything they wanted. They got relief from sanctions that were crippling them. They also received, they received hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. They also received these very, very strange $100 million in cash payments that were sent in the middle of the night by airplane by Obama, which were an outrage. When do we pay countries in cash? Hundreds of millions, if not billions, in cash? Well, this is the whole problem. Why are we making an agreement that puts a country that is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism on the road to being a nuclear power that can destroy the world? And if we're giving a country that's the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, whose budget gets decimated by the amount of money they give away to Muslim terrorist groups, why wouldn't we think we were giving it to them in cash because it was going to be used to give to terrorists? I mean, Biden maybe is too stupid to realize that, but Obama wasn't. And the both of them did it. And does he intend to do it again? Well, we don't know because they don't answer any questions. We don't know what he intends to do. But he's dying to go back to the agreement that would destroy Israel. We've got a new Israeli prime minister. He's supposed to be more moderate than Bibi. I had total confidence in Bibi, by the way. I thought there were periods of time when he was doing a better job protecting us than Obama and Biden. And I really would like to have him around. But Bennett stepped up and seems as vociferous and as strong in his opposition to Iran becoming a nuclear power because he sees it as an existential threat to the state of Israel, which it is. All you have to do is listen to them. When are we going to learn our lesson? Why do you think they're sponsoring terrorism? In order to be able to deliver results that are not traced to them. In fact, I was shocked when they sent people to Albania to destroy an MEK celebration of the Muslim New Year that I was present at, by the way. They sent an assassin squad of 4 people, and one of them was an Iranian diplomat. Iran usually doesn't do that. They work through surrogates, so that we all know it comes from Iran, but you can't say it. And then they did a similar thing a few months later in Paris to a much larger gathering that included not just me, but the head of Madame Rajavi, the head of the organization, the Iranian dissident organization, Newt Gingrich, former Attorney General Mukasey, oh goodness, many Americans, Republicans and Democrats, former Senator Torricelli, and former heads of state of European countries. They sent a group of 4, again, with a identifiable Iranian diplomat as part of the group. I think both groups have now been convicted, thank goodness. But Iran cannot be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. We do not put nuclear weapons in the hands of insane people. We don't put nuclear weapons in the hands of a terrorist country. Iran is not just a state sponsor of terrorism. It's not just the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. It is a terrorist country. Aside from China, their ally, they've probably killed more of their own people than any other country in the world. They slaughtered them on the streets. And we ignore the fact that because of the massive Trump sanctions, their economy is devastated. And yeah, let China support them. Let Russia support them. That drains resources from them. We sure have enough draining of resources with the corrupt Biden government that we have. Let them have to drain resources to support Iran, and let's crush it economically. And by the way, the protests that are going on in Iran haven't stopped. Regimes like that always appear extremely invulnerable until the day after they're overthrown. And I can tell you from my own personal experience that the movement against them that has been pretty much unabated for the last 2.5 years results in protests in every city in Iran on a regular basis, including people who go right up against the Ayatollah with signs that he's a murderer, a dictator. It's a different atmosphere in Iran now. And Trump released that, and Biden hasn't been able to suppress it. They just ignore Biden. But why he's in love with the reign of terror, the regime of terror, I don't get it. It has to be the left-wingers around him. It has to be the communists around him. It has to be the same group that was around Biden that led him to give hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of cash to a terrorist country, which has to be, again, one of the more insane, almost impossible to understand acts of an American president. Well, I thank you very, very much for listening to this this set of 3 challenges. This will determine not just the fate of the Biden administration. It's going to possibly have a lot to do with our fate. These are very consequential matters. These are not just, do we have higher taxes or lower taxes? These are matters about life and death and survival and failure to survive. People are being slaughtered in China as we speak. People are being slaughtered in Iran as we speak. People are being suppressed in Russia as we speak. The ambitions of Russia to reclaim its prior Soviet glory are deep within the ambitions of Vladimir Putin. Xi's desire to create China as the dominant country in the world, dominating the US, dominating even Russia, that'll eventually split. The ancient hatred between those two is very, very strong. And Iran very similarly has delusions of grandeur with a Muslim hegemony in particularly the northern Middle East. And under Biden, they almost got there, broken up very, very well by Trump's Abraham Accords and other things that he did and getting out of the agreement. But now, with the Biden administration looking as if they'll do anything to get an agreement. And what is Iran telling them? Iran's telling them to go to hell. And unless you remove all the sanctions first, we don't want to talk to you. Which means they want to go straight ahead and become a nuclear power. No. This is what happens when you elect a president whose political party is so far to the left that it's hard to distinguish them from a communist party. They certainly are a socialist party. And it also is what you get when you elect a dishonest man who owes a great deal to China and Russia, who must have every single tape of the history of his perverted family. This is a compromised man, and we need an independent, strong, brave, fully functioning leader right now, and not a man who's, very, very quickly looking like he should have been put in a nursing home a year ago. It's a tragedy for this country. We got to pray that we can get through it. And we got to keep focusing on the areas where there are vulnerabilities so that we're ready to plug them up as soon as we get the opportunity to do that in 22 and 24 when we begin to reconstruct our country again as a democracy, as a country that respects our own rights, as well as understands the difference between good and evil in the world. Thank you very much, and we'll be back in a few days with another edition of Rudy's Common Sense.